Good morning dear students. Today we are going to start our English grammar class with chapter number 6, active voice and passive voice. Dear students, in this chapter we will study about the voices like active voice and passive voice. In active voice we can say that a sentence is dependent completely on the subject. We can say that in active voice subject is prominent and in passive voice is replaced by the object, so we can say that we have to make it more meaningful. So we will study in this chapter what you mean by active voice and what you mean by passive voice. Dear students, in a grammar, voice is the quality of a verb. Which type of verb is used in any sentence, that's the meaning to active voice and passive voice. And verb that indicates whether it's subject acts or acted upon subject. Two things are here. Subject acts or acted upon subject. When condition is like this one, then we can, if the subject is going to act, then we can say that sentence is in active voice. And if acted upon subject, then we can say that that sentence may be in passive. In this one, at first you have to write subject. We can say that in this type of sentences formula may be like this: subject plus verb plus object. And if we are going to talk about passive voice, then it's completely going to opposite. Object will be changed into subject and subject will be changed into object. Then at first you have to write object of the subject, active voice at first, object plus verb plus by, and then you have to write subject. We can say that it's completely opposite structure of the passive, and this one is opposite of the active voice only. We can say that in both of the sentences many changes are here. In active voice, at first you have to write sentence like I write this sentence, and after that if we are going to change into passive, then we can say that this sentence is written by me. Then we can say that in this one subject is prominent and this one we can say that object is prominent. So many changes are here. The distinction between active and passive voice we will study. At first we will talk about active voice. What you mean by active voice? Then we can say that when the subject perform or causes the action name in the verb is said to be active voice. We can say that in active voice doer is prominent, subject is prominent. Like one example is given in your textbook. An elephant crossed the pickup truck. Sentence is this one. An elephant crossed the pickup truck. If we are going to change this sentence into passive voice, this one is in active voice. If we are going to change it to passive voice, then we know that in this sentence subject is what? An elephant is subject and verb, crossed is verb, and the pickup truck we can say that this one is our object. According to this formula, at first you have to write the object the pickup truck, after that verb which one is given here? Crossed. According to tense we have to change. If verb second form is here, then we have to write was crossed. The pickup truck was crossed by an elephant. We can say that it is totally opposite of this one. In active voice, at first we wrote subject, after that verb, and after that object. But if we are going to change into passive voice, then at first we have to write object at first. After that your verb according to rules you have to follow. If any sentence is dependent on tense, then you have to follow the tense rules. If any another special rules will be there, then you have to follow that type of rules. After that by also you have to write, and it's your subject. This type of structure you have to follow whenever you are going to change any type of sentence into passive voice. Analyze the first example. Action perform which action? Then we can say that crushed. Action is which? Crushed is action. Subject of the verb we already know that an elephant, and in performer of the action we can say that an elephant. So because of that we can say that if we are going to talk about active voice and passive voice, then only one thing will be in our mind. In active voice at first you have to write subject. We can say that subject may be prominent in active voice, and in passive voice object may be prominent. Analyze the second example is already given here. Whatever they mention I already wrote here and I explained already. This one you have to write whenever you are going to change into passive voice. Important points to remember about active voice and passive voice. Which type of points you have to remember? Then first thing is here about active voice. Natural and preferable to use active voice. Means active voice sentences are like the natural sentence. I teach English. Then it is natural sentence only. Subject, verb and object. And if I am going to talk about passive voice, then we have to change that complete structure. At first we have to write object. English. At first English will come. After that verb and after that subject will become. Passive voice preferred when we do not know the doer of the action. When we write passive voice sentences, when we are not sure about the doer of the action, on that condition we have to write sentence in passive voice. When the action is more important than the doer, when action is more important than the doer, then we have to write sentence into passive voice. In this sentence we can say that an elephant crushed the pickup truck. If we are going to think about that crushing the pickup truck, that's the more important, then we can say that the pickup truck was crushed by an elephant. Then on that condition at last we will write our subject. Preferred in formal scripts like reports, advertisement, notices, announcements, etc. That's the more important point for you. Always passive voice may be used in advertisements, reports, notices and announcement. If you are going to write that type of writing compositions or any type of structure regarding English grammar or composition part, then you have to follow passive voice rules. Second point about active voice, emphasis of the verb is on the subject. Mostly emphasis of the subject verb is on the subject, because we know that completely subject and verb both are connected to each other. If we are going to talk about passive voice, then we can say that emphasis of the verb is on the subject. Same condition is being here. In this one also, subject and verb both are interacted. Action is crushing and doing by whom? An elephant. Then on both conditions we can say that same condition may be here, but only a little different. In active voice at first you have to write the subject, and in passive voice at last you have to write the subject. Example is already given. Mr. Varun will repair the car. Simple sentences here. Mr. Varun will repair the car, and if we are going to changing into passive, then at first we have to write the car, because the car is object, and in passive voice always we write object first, after that verb, after that by, and after that at last we will write subject. Then we can say that the car will be repaired by Mr. Varun. Dear students, it's the general information about the active voice and passive voice. Now we will talk about rules of conversion from active voice to passive voice. Whenever you are going to change a sentence into active to passive, then which type of the rules you have to follow, that thing we will study now. Dear students, now we will talk about rules of conversion from active voice to passive voice. Dear students, our first rule is already given here. The positions of the subject and the object of the verb are interchanged the object of the verb in the active voice becomes the subject in the passive voice. Whatever subject is mentioned in active voice, that may be changed into passive voice object, and object of the active voice is changed into passive voice subject. The object of the verb in the active voice becomes subject in the passive voice. I already mentioned in last example. Once again I am going to write example of your textbook. Manish bought a new guitar. Manish bought a new guitar. At first, dear students, watch the sentence carefully. Subject is here. This one is your subject. This one is your verb, and this one complete is your object. You know that subject, verb, and object. Then we can say that this is the formation of active voice. Then we can say that this sentence is in active voice only. But whenever you are going to change into passive voice, then already I mentioned in last sentence, at first you have to write object. Means active voice object will be changed into passive voice subject because it comes at first. A new guitar. According to that, you have to write verb second form is here, so we have to write was, and verb third form bought, after that by, and at last your subject will come Manish, and this one is your passive. Now watch carefully. Your subject of the active voice is changed into passive voice object, and object of the active voice changed into passive voice subject, and your verb is as it is here. This one is your rule number first of changing active to passive. Now we will talk about rule number second. The preposition by is used before the subject of the verb in the active voice, and it's not necessary to use by plus agent phrase in passive voice. By plus agent phrase there is no need to write, so you can directly write the sentence, no problem. But at first you have to mention that thing before the subject only you have to write by. Already example is given here. His friends love him. His friends love him. Dear students, this sentence is about by preposition, whatever we are mentioning here, this one. According to that we have to write the rule. His friends love him, then we can say that it may be changed into he, because it's pronoun, we have to change into noun. Then we will be just about know that whatever we are doing to the personal pronoun he will have to change. According to that, noun table is already given in your the textbook. You can know that subject pronoun and object pronoun already mentioned. I will be changed to be, you will be you, he will be changed into him, she, her, it, we, yours, they, them. According to that you have to change. Whenever you are going to change subject to object, object to subject, whatever, according to that follow you have to rule. He. Now verb first form, then we can say the subject is into present simple, then present simple we have to change into he, is, and verb third form love. Now main problem is in front of us, where we have to write by. Then already I mentioned there, according to that only you have to write by. You have to write here by, and after that write his friends. Means by will always come before the noun or subject of active. Whatever active voice subject before, that's only you have to write by. It's your rule number second. Now rule number third. The verb in the active is changed to suitable auxiliary plus past participle. Dear students, one more important thing about passive voice, whenever anyone asks you about passive voice, then keep it in your mind. Passive voice means verb third form. Surely you have to write verbs third form whenever anyone asks you about passive voice, because whenever you are going to change it to active to passive, then you have to write surely verb third form, and that thing only mentioned here, auxiliary plus past participle. Past participle means verb third form you have to write. The chances of the verb should be in accordance to the tense. According to the tense you have to change an auxiliary verbs, and the active voice and the noun and pronoun used, like the bakers are baking the cake. The bakers are baking the cake. It's your active voice sentence. But whenever you are going to change into passive, then what you have to write? At first mention that what is subject, what is object. Subject, verb and object. We know that whenever we are going to change active to passive, then at first we have to write object, then you have to write the cake. Now according to this one we have to change. Are baking is written, so here you have to write the cake is, and whenever ing form is there in passive, then you have to write being in. If that thing ing is written in active, then you have to write being in passive sentence. So the cake is being. After that baking is written here, so you have to write verb third form, baking changed into baked. After that by and the bakers. According to this one we have to change the sentence. We know that already past participle form you have to use in passive voice. Whichever form is used in active voice, that doesn't mean, but at least you have to know that whenever you are going to change the sentence into passive voice, then surely you have to write verb third form or verb past participle form. Now fourth rule, the action verb followed by a preposition retains its preposition in the passive voice. Like the gardener looks after the plants well. In this sentence, afterward is what? Preposition. The gardener looks after the plants well. This sentence is in active voice. We know that because subject at first, the gardeners. And now we are going to change into passive. The gardener looks after the plants well. We know that the sentence is in active voice. This one, if it is not seeable to you, then you can watch in your textbook. All example is already written in your textbook. Only you have to watch from your textbook. Now we are going to change into passive. At first demonstrate what is subject, what is object. Subject, verb, and this one is your object, and this one is your preposition. Then what you have to write? At first the plants, after that looks, then you have to write are looked, because we know that verb first form, then we have to change into verb third form, and according to tense we have to change auxiliary also. After looked after by whom? The gardener. And at last we have to write well, then it will be changed into passive voice. The gardener looks after the plants well. Plants is our object, this one is the subject, this one is your verb, and this one is preposition, then and this one is extra verb. Then we can say that the plants are looked after by the gardener well. Same formation will be there. Object means a passive subject, auxiliary plus verb, preposition by, and this one is your passive object and active subject, and last remaining part of the sentence you have to write. And now in rule number 5, already table is going to mention the subject pronoun in the active voice is replaced by the object pronoun in the passive voice. According to you have to know that I will be changed into me, you, always you, he will be changed into him, she into her, it into it, we into us, they into them. We know that, like one example is already given, he was designed this dress. Then at first object you have to write this dress has been designed by him, means he is changed into him in passive voice. And in the rule number we can say that 6, intransitive verbs that do not take an object cannot be expressed in passive voice. Listen carefully. Intransitive verbs means verbs that do not take an object. If any verb doesn't have any type of object, then it cannot be expressed into passive voice. Like Ravi is going to office, then you couldn't change into the passive voice because you know that in this one any type of object is not going to mention. The old man changed, then in the old man coughed, then on that condition also you couldn't change into passive voice. And our last rule is here G. Verbs with two objects can have two passive forms. If two objects is given in any sentence, then two type of passive voice you can create from them. At first you have to use object number first, after that you have to use object number second. Like example is given here, Mrs. Vijaya teaches us French. Wait, I will close it. I will write here only. Mrs. Vijaya teaches us French. Dear students, mention that thing. Proper noun, French is proper noun, so you have to write capital letter F. Mrs. Vijaya teaches us French. At first, this one is your subject, this one is your verb, and object 1 and object 2. Two objects are here, 1 and 2, us and French. At first we will make sentence from object 1, us, then us will change into we. After that, according to tense, verb first form plus s or es given, then we have to write are teach, third form taught, we are taught. After that your object French by Mrs. Vijaya. After that, with the second object French is taught to us by Mrs. Vijaya. Two passive voices here, first and two. We can say that if two object is given in any sentence, then you can write two passive voice of that sentence, and that's about our rules of the general rules of the active voice and passive voice. Dear students, now I will forward you exercise. First rewrite these sentences in passive voice. That exercise you have to write in your notebook, and after that in next class we will discuss about rules of conversion from active to passive in various tenses. According to tense we will learn rules about that thing. If you have any type of doubt regarding this chapter or whatever I taught today, then you can surely ask me through Google Meet class. Thank you so much.